Welcome everybody, I'm Santiago Kneeland and this is The Divine Within, the invisible connection with God. On today's topic, we're going to talk about Jesus world building. What is it and what is it that we're looking for? How Jesus constructed a spiritual kingdom built not on institutions but on transformation, unity, and love is something that we're going to be exploring today. We'll also explore what it means to be born again, how Jesus-themed spaces, online and in person, can become extensions of the kingdom within, and how sharing these worlds deepens our spiritual connection. And we'll reflect on podcasting as a modern-day parable, a way to make the teachings of Jesus accessible, living, and real. Today's guest is Greg Mueller, a sociologist turned disciple with a PhD and an entire career devoted to research, policy, and service. After decades in public sector leadership, Greg shifted into a chapter answering the call to serve as a handyman for Jesus. He's an author, husband, father of four, and a man committed to deepening his friendship with Christ above all else. So welcome, Greg.
Thank
it's a
you.
pleasure
I'm
having you here.
Happy to be on there.
Awesome. And we're going to be talking about this concept that you named Jesus world building, and there's different aspects to it. But I think it's interesting to hear your take on your story, how you got to this point, how you got to where you are, and having this commitment and this drive to believe in this and to live in this. So in this segment, we're going to be talking about being born again, the true reset. In this first segment, we'll explore what Jesus meant when he spoke about being born again, not as a ritual, not as a slogan, but as a genuine spiritual reboot. We'll look at how this inner rebirth reshapes priorities, identity, and relationship with God. This is the starting point of Jesus world building, a transformed heart. So, Greg, tell us a little bit about your story and how you got to this point.
In 2015, I had a experience that can be described at three different levels of language. Low glory language or common language, you say, well, you had a, a mental health breakdown. And that would be satisfactory for most people. They'd say, okay, that's what it was. And that's the low glory is what we all can um, share in a pluralistic society um, in common without people freaking out that you're getting all religious-y on them. Uh, Another way to talk about what happened to me in 2015 is an and condition. I would agree with, yeah, I had some kind of um, midlife crisis. So but it's the nature of that crisis that intrigues me. So um, at the medium glory level, the glory of the moon, say, to use a scriptural phrase. We just talked about the glory of the stars, the low glory. Don't burn us up with all your religious, mystical stuff. Just tell us what happened. I had a mental breakdown. Okay, but at the medium glory, this is something that religious people could. I said it actually ended up being a blessing. So, like when people hit rock bottom and they find themselves in AA,
Mm-hmm.
they will begin to use a language that has a little bit of mysticism, where you're talking about a higher power. You will not be able to understand your alcoholism without entering into a relationship of what happened to you with something that's higher than you. And so that's a medium glory language and is able to being shared within groups of believers. And of course, you can share it with unbelievers. You just have more tension when you do that. If you go to Walmart and say "Merry Christmas, God bless you," you might kind of upset the apple cart, so to speak, because you're expected to use a kind of a lower glory language. Can we just say Happy Holidays? Yeah. So get along, go along language. But then there's the medium glory, the glory of the moon. Well, what happened to me to fully, and that's now I'm going to do another and condition. I would say, yes, that's true, that I had an experience that was kind of, it was like a storm in my life, and it ended up blessing me. And setting me off on a hero's journey. That's a language we can, that's a language of literature that we can understand that experience from. But there's another language that I
Mm-hmm.
really like, and it's called high glory language. And that's the and as well. So all three languages do describe what happened to me. So in 2015, I was born again. I I gave up my life to Christ. There was a still small voice inside of me, and he said his name was Jesus. Now, when I say he said his name was Jesus, I'm having to speak English. I don't. He did not talk to me in what we would call English. He taught to me. Anyone who's familiar with the workings of the Spirit knows. Yes, he knows English, but he generally talks to you in like what's artistic. It's like feelings, impressions,
Your
yeah,
emotions, yeah.
synchronicities, and it. Um, did I know that he spoke in that language before? I would say yes, but it was so pronounced, that experience, that it started opening me up to a curiosity. What happened to me? So over the years, I realized I think I'd been born again. And I knew that. And so I started talking in a higher glory language in inappropriate places. So something had possessed me, um, and it did so because on a spiritual spectrum, because you can use that language as well, uh, the lower spectrum, and God works with people on this spectrum. Um, the lower spectrum would be kind of pragmatists who prefer to understand the world just kind of as it's given. So they like practical things, and kind of want to go very light on anything that's mystical. And then on that spectrum, there's a more medium level, and there's people who like some and life is best explained by things that are otherworldly, but they might kind of go light on that. And there's probably a lot of stuff in that
Okay.
middle area. I'm not in that middle area. I was born to be extreme. I'm on the extreme end of the spectrum. Um, and so those are the mystics. Those are people who some people would say they are so heavenly minded they're no earthly good. I'm like, yeah, I'm always in danger of being too heavenly minded. Now the pragmatists, those on the lower end, one could complain and say they're too earthly minded to be any heavenly good. When things come wrong that can't be easily explained, they're groping to say, how do I explain this in any earthly terms? And I just like, you really can't. That there's aspects of life, and even they know that there's aspects of life that can only be explained by things that aren't uh, normal English. God's ways are not man's ways. So, what I just laid out there, spectrum, these frameworks, is kind of how I think, and God knows that. So, in 2015, he condescended. He goes, "Okay, Greg, I've come to have a deeper relationship with you." And he did, and he then started speaking in a language that I have to interpret, because that's what you have to do with God. At least that's what my friends and everybody says. Yeah, you kind of have to interpret what is he saying to you, and then you bring it into English and formulate. Well, I think he's telling me to do this or that, um, and so that's what I did. I formulated an understanding that I was born again, and I could correlate it with the scriptures, and I could correlate it with what was happening to other people. What I'd grown up in the Christian faith, Church of Jesus Christ Latter Day Saints, LDS, formerly called Mormons, still call it Mormons if you want. Um, and so
Yes.
that's what I had to go with. And the cool thing I've learned about Jesus, he can go wherever you start from, on that walk. So that's
Yeah, it's
yeah. So
regardless
I
of where you
opened up
start.
a big can there,
Yeah.
but that's I had a big experience, and I went to interpret it. That was the experience. Yeah.
Nice. There's a lot of here to analyze, and I like what you were talking about the medium glory, the low glory, or I mean these different levels, and and that each one that depends on. It's kind of you can move, I believe, as well. You can, like you're saying, you can start from anywhere, but it's interesting that there's different levels, and you can progress. I assume so. In particular, do you want to talk about your particular story or what drove you to that? A little bit of what was that in breaking standpoint, because it's interesting, and a lot of people want to relate to that experience, and maybe are going through a transforming experience, and to understand a little bit of what you went through might be
Yeah, I would
good
hope
for them.
that's my hope when I was anticipating this podcast. Like, I hope it's not about me. I hope it's about somebody else, God, because that's what He puts in me. He's like, enough about you already, Greg. And you're like, well, okay, well, all I have is my story, and so I pray that He'll guide whatever this is, so that somebody out there that can use this can use it. But after 10 years of working with Jesus to one understand what He wants from me, what He's doing with me. Um, I realized that I was born in a way that He wanted. That um, that scene from the Les Miserables. Um, there's a chapel scene where he tears up his Jean Valjean tears up his convict papers and scatters them to the winds, and chooses a different way. Um, it's it's an archetype that you see in the Matrix, blue pill or red pill, taking the red pill. It's the hero's journey. Well, I was born aching for that. I was born not liking this world, the regular world, the low glory world. Um, Somehow He had wired me
Okay.
that I was always seeking whatever I was doing. I'm seeking more. I'm seeking for something different. And so I was, that's what prepared me. I mean, He told me, you've always been seeking a, a different world, and it has different names, the kingdom of God on earth. It's an approximation. It's not heaven per se, but it is at the same time.
It's striving for, and I think, I mean, this is interesting because, I mean, we are being and trying to be godlike in perfection, and I think that if we follow that path, it's the right path into at least progressing. You know, we can't be perfect as God, at least not in this life or at this moment. But I think it's a very noble vision and strive. You know, striving to be godlike. What better thing to
Yeah,
do?
and that's
Yeah.
he satisfactorily answered my questions about that. He said, "This is heaven. You have low glory, medium glory, and high glory. I prepared this world like the Garden of Eden. This is a place where I want you to have experiences that are faith based. So I'm going to build deniability into everything, even the most precious things I give you. You can deny them, and there's reasons why you can question them. And that's by design. So I had to become more comfortable with that because I don't like it. I'd like things to be sure, and that's my carnal self that wants something that's sure and solid and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't move
Certainty.
around. And so in my born again experience, he gave me
Yeah.
what he does give all who seek it, crutches. So one of the crutches he gives people, it's a huge one, the scriptures. So he'll give sets of scriptures to people, his word. And you can hear his voice in it. You read it and you're hearing his voice, just like if I read Tom Sawyer or Huckleberry Finn, I'm hearing somebody's voice. It's the author's voice that I'm hearing. And that's what God did. That's what I believe is he gave some stuff that got translated to English. And so, it's not like perfect because it's been handled by men, but it's enough. And so, one of the things I've had to do to build my relationship with Christ is accept, Greg, this is as good as it's going to get. And now let's proceed with that. And so one of the crutches he gave me in addition to the scriptures, he's given me what's called a world. And it's a framework, but it's not an unfamiliar one. So there's authors. If you used AI or Googled, how do authors use the concept or the framework of worlds to frame their understanding of their books and their narratives? That's a familiar conceptual tool. So you have the Marvel universe, but you also have authors that are writing books and they want to place their characters uh, and the narrative, the story within this holistic framework so that they can attend to all the relevant parts. And so in 2015, that's what really I got excited about because he spoke to me and showed me, kind of like in a vision, um, what is coming in the future. and we're probably 10 years away from it, but the ability to take what is inside of us, our most precious things, and give an um, a external expression to them, and that's what books do. You can have a book inside you. That's different. If you can get the book out of you, Mark Twain, then we can all read it and we can all see it. We can interpret it, and we might interpret it differently than you do, Mark Twain, but it's much more powerful. So in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. And God, it'd be helpful if you can take what's in your mind and dump it into some written symbols that we can interpret. And so God created this thing that you can think of as a world, scripture world. So I know that you have both the Bible, and then what's the other scripture you have, Santiago, the Yoranta? Or
The Urantia book,
yes,
the Urantia book, yeah.
and so he's given these things to help us in our relationship with him. Well, what he gave me is kind of what I needed, is a holistic framework to approach this relationship with. Then I could trust him better because I could see. Of course, I'm not able to hold on to all parts of the elephant. Maybe I've got the tail, but I needed to see the whole thing. Like, what are you doing overall here? I
Yeah.
know I only hold the tail. I can't tell you what the tusk is like, but yeah, go ahead.
I like the way that you're seeing and the way that you're framing this world and this concept and this, you're telling us about you were born again in 2015 and you had this vision about these Jesus world and you used the analogy of or the comparison to the Marvel universe and all these universes that are now popping out, and that you had this vision of what was to come, and probably you're stating that within maybe 10 years. On the Divine Within podcast, we'll share real conversations to help you find a personal connection with God. My goal is to support your faith, growth, and journey toward discovering the divine within yourself. Join us to deepen your faith and spiritual journey.